Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs herald a new era for the judiciary, one that has been battled for most of the years with issues of case backlogs and challenges in the dispensation of justice. Joining me for this discussion is legal practitioner Benjamin Katana, who will be giving us some perspective on exactly what Mao brings on board, but most importantly, how the ministry goes forward. We are also joined by Captain Francis Babu, renowned and seasoned political commentator. Many thanks for joining us, gentlemen, on the show. Before we get into the politics of the day, yesterday I was brought to the knowledge that World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly was held. Now, coming into the show, you reinforced that fact. And I was thinking, yeah, I think it is something that we didn't really pay attention to, especially on social media. We didn't see these messages going out to grandparents. Hello, Jaja, we wish you the best. Tell us about that. You are a grandparent, no doubt.
Yes.
I look forward to being one.
Yes, very proud to be. It is a very important day because for many years people have not been paying attention.
Yeah.
But in the last 30 years or so, the world system has been recognized the elderly.
Yeah.
And the population is increasing because of better living, because of better feeding, and therefore there are more elderly than people we had before. An elderly by definition in Uganda is anybody above 60 years of age, and in some other countries about 65. United Nations has recognized them, and the church is very, very strong about this. I mean, they go back to the Bible, as you read earlier on. They actually quote places in Psalm and other places, and then they realize that in some cases the culture for many years looked after the elderly, but as we continue to develop and become more modern, the culture is being eroded, and we're having problems with looking after our elderly. And in some countries they actually take them to nursing homes, and
care centers.
That's right. So the new thing is coming up, and they've got levels. 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 80 onwards. How do they look after these elderly? In the modern stance, they say anybody between 60 and about 70 can still work. Yeah. But in most countries, they retire at 60. So there's an urge by the United Nations Convention that countries should try and accommodate the elderly. To an extent that today Uganda has adopted this, and we have elderly starting from the village level, all the way to the district level, and on the national level we have an elderly system where people are elected, and we have members of parliament representing the elderly in parliament. So it is an important day. That day doesn't mean that much. It just reminds us.
Yes, reminds us
that we have this group, and we should thank them. Into the church, they believe that elderly is a blessing to have, and where they stay is a blessed house.
That's right.
And people who have lived that long should be able to give us a fair assessment, and therefore they should behave even better than the younger people. So elderlies who misbehave, we should find out whether they're having dementia or other things like that.
Okay. Mr. Benjamin Katana, I don't want to push you into brackets. That you're still years away from, but no doubt. What do you make of this particular aspect?
To be a grandfather, they don't have to be offsprings of your biological children. They can be offsprings of your nieces and nephews.
All right.
And in that regard, I also qualify. But most importantly is to note that I think one of the greatest blessings is to live long.
That's right.
That's right.
And that the old are as useful as the young. But it's also very important for society to know where to deploy its energies, where to deploy the young people, where to deploy the old people.
That's right.
That both can be useful in different fields, but build synergies for uplifting our society.
There you have it, Benjamin Katana, giving us some interesting perspective there that you need to pay attention to.
A very important point,
and of course,
an old man cannot run 10,000 meters.
There you have it. Of course, it's about deployment, where, and of course how. Now, gentlemen, allow us delve into the discussion of the day. We are coming here on the backdrop of the appointment of Democratic Party President Norbert Mao as the new Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. This is a docket of cabinet that has remained vacant for the last 1 year. The politics aside, one would say it is good for the justice docket to have a renowned lawyer, a man of well, vast knowledge in the workings of the justice system in the country, and perhaps a timely appointment. I would like to pick your brain, Benjamin Katana, on this latest development.
First of all is that it's important that now that docket is filled with a minister. You earlier mentioned that the fact that it has been vacant for some time, that maybe it's irrelevant. I don't think so. And the absence of a political leader does not necessarily mean that the institution is not performing its constitutional mandate. But of course, the political leader is expected to provide leadership, strategic and political leadership to the team, the technical team, and the rest. And so one of the key deliverables of the Ministry of Justice, like it mentioned, you know, like the name sounds, is to facilitate the people of Uganda to achieve their aspirations as contained in what guides our nation, ideally what guides our nation, the Constitution. And one of them is, you know, good governance, rule of law, constitutionalism. And so it is a very important docket. And while the appointment, because that ministry has been in the recent past occupied by people that are not necessarily lawyers. And I also need to emphasize that you don't need to be a lawyer to provide strategic direction and leadership in that particular docket. So while the appointment of a person like you described with vast legal knowledge to such a docket will be an addition in terms of, you know, facilitating the people of Uganda to achieve that aspiration of good governance, human rights, and the rest. It is also important to note that the deficit that we have in those areas is not as a result of not having a lawyer or a substantive minister in that docket. But it's because the deviation from the same facilitates the entrenchment of the political interests of the current leader of the country. And now, I don't think that the current leader of the country has appointed the renowned lawyer to help him loosen his grip on the country.
Yeah, continue. Please do.
And I also believe that, you know, the old adage that you cannot bite the hand that feeds you. So regardless of the great CV and the good wishes that many of us have extended towards the Honorable Mao upon his appointment, I think in terms of what we expect to see taking place, in terms of giving leadership to help the people of Uganda achieve those aspirations as contained in our Constitution, we should not have high expectations as a result of the appointment.
All right, I'll be asking you a little bit later to help us wade through the particular challenges that the judiciary continues to grapple with. That Norbert Mao has a chance to either rectify or, as you say, well, playing into the interests of the current leader of the country, who is his boss. We shall be waiting, of course, to see how that plays out. Allow me bring in Captain Francis Babu. Norbert Mao is a man whose governance and administration credentials are not questionable. He did a wonderful job as chairman of Gulu municipality. He was commendable as MP for the same area. And then coming into the Democratic Party, I do not want to say he replicated the same. Now, that means he's human. He can do wonders one area and perhaps is susceptible to failure in another. What do you make of Mao's ability to perform in light of what is no doubt a very tricky appointment that he now has?
Well, I'd like to thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having us.
Yes.
And secondly, let us be very careful. The Constitution is very clear. The executive powers are vested in the President of the country. He is the minister of all dockets.
That's right.
And therefore, he can have a docket which he continues to hold on to, and he can do it because he's got a strategy. And now that's another side of it, because people have got all this suspicion and whatnot. Whilst I agree that history tells us the man wants to continue having a grip onto the power, there could be another drift to it. And the drift would be, does he want to use the Minister of Justice Constitutional Affairs to put the things that have gone wrong right, by bringing in the right person so that they can form a team to, for example, have a Constitutional Review Commission?
That's right.
Number two, having things that have gone wrong into the human rights arena. I would love to see tomorrow Honorable Mao announcing that all those people who were arrested during the political time have been given bail and they're out, and that these two people who are in wherever it is that they have problems, they're also given bail.
The members of parliament.
Members of parliament. Suddenly, maybe that can work. Now, I'm looking at it from another perspective, because there's this getting excited. I want to get away from that. Could the appointment of Mao in the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs start a new chapter? Could it be that the head of state is being, wait a minute, we need to get away from the past and move on to another level?
That's right.
And he also realizes, like we said, that at this age he's bound to say, well, wait a minute, maybe it's time to bring in certain people who can help put things right. I'm thinking loud, by the way. Right. Don't get me wrong.
Which is perfectly fine.
Yeah, and then could he be becoming mellow into the governance? Could he say, look, we know what is right, because the 10-point program and the people who joined NRM many years ago, this was our aim, to try and put things that have gone wrong right.
Yeah.
Could it be? And I'm very serious about this. I would like to, because I was reading the agreement which has been put on social media, and this cooperation agreement says, look, we need to put things right, and we need to accept certain things of DP. One of the things that that intrigued me, he said the DP members of parliament will continue to debate how they see things. They will not be held by this agreement. And at the same time, the DP bloc will continue putting forward their views. Now, if that is so, and it's not a matter of a campaign, then there will be a change. I would like to see a change. I would like to see the appointment of Honorable Norbert Mao bring about change in the leadership of government, and at the same time bring about a different approach that certain groups of people can bring about change.
Yes, Captain, allow me to stay with you. Your readings of history are far more solid than any of us on the show this morning.
I'm just learning.
Yeah. In 1986, when President Yoweri Museveni had just ascended to power after, of course, the long guerrilla war in Luwero, he instituted what was a broad-based government.
Yes.
That broad-based government saw the bringing on board of political leaders from other parties and other forms from other sectors to ensure that governance would, first of all, be easy, given the fact that there was a lot of turmoil and the nation wanted a lot, just about everyone to come on board. We had Paul Simogerere, we had Evaristo Nyanzi, we had Patrick Katariko. You know, these were gentlemen who were stalwarts.
There's Professor Mulema too.
Yeah, but Professor Mulema. These were stalwarts. The context now is different, because there is really not a call for a broad-based government that Mao can quickly explain and smoothly go away with the fact that he has joined the governing party. He's still on the spot on that. How do you see this working out? Given the light that it has happened before, we've had DP leader Paul Kawanga Simogerere being minister but still remaining.
At the time, those senior people, those I call them our fathers in politics, they are brought on board first of all to try and bring the government at that time to a certain level. And when we made our constitution, towards the end, we agreed to go multi-party.
Yeah. And
most of those people, of course, went to their parties. And during the time they were in governance, they never gave up being in their parties.
Yeah.
And therefore, when the multi-party dispensation came, they went back to their parties. In fact, some of them stood for elections.
Yeah.
Now, to talk about now that there is no need for national dialogue is unfortunate, because we know there are certain things that have to be put right.
That's right.
And therefore, if there is a chance to get somebody from the different groups to come and talk about this, it's well and good. I'm looking at it from that point of view. And at the same time, there is a tendency for us to be excited about things where we can find solutions. Maybe, and this is my view, maybe the power there is beginning to realize that you can't continue just doing what you've been doing with the sycophants. You've got to bring in people who can debate. For example, today the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of Parliament were formerly not NRM.
That's right.
And they are working. They're doing a good job. We have other people in government who were formerly in different parties. As we talk right now, sometimes, you know, we're talking about this cooperation agreement. I really laughed. The same party signed what they call a block DP, a cooperation agreement. They signed another one for human rights. They've been signing different relationship with the different parties.
That's right.
We never had this hullabaloo. But because he has gone to government, there's so much hullabaloo about this. And I think yes, maybe there is a mistake. Maybe it was not done in good faith, like some of them are saying. And therefore, that one they should find a solution to. But at the end of the day, could this be a beginning? Because we have tried everything. We have stood for elections. Some people have stood 4 times. Other people, they've said they have stolen their elections. There's been war. People have gone to jail. Some people have died. Maybe this is another way.
Well, let's put that question to a legal practitioner, Benjamin Katana. The Constitution right now allows for most of the political underpinnings of collaboration to be able to bring so many people from who are not within the fold. And like Captain Ebley says, that perhaps it is time to transition from sycophancy to a little bit of level-headedness. Do you see? You've already voiced concern that he won't, but is there a chance that Mao will, remain level-headed?
Well, the starting point, in my view, is that, like he mentions, that national dialogue is a desirable approach.
That's right.
2, the sycophancy that the Honorable Francis Babu talks about, in many ways, cannot be attributable to weakness of character of the various actors.
Yeah.
But, well, others may call it the strength or weakness of the leader. Because the Honorable Mao is not the first person to be appointed from the opposition with a track record of being objective prior to being appointed to cabinet. And there are several. I may not need to mention names, but when they have joined the cabinet, like Norbert Mao explained previously in one of the clips that have been making rounds, they have been turned into wheelbarrows. Why? Because that is the approach of the person that is appointing them. And we also need to indicate that dialogue should be principled, should be transparent, and should be facilitated by people whose objective is only to see a nation that is progressing, but not people with selfish political interests individually sitting in darkness, and they come on to say we have reached a consensus. In my view, the agreement, whether it is the one we have seen on social media or whether there's another one.
He has agreed that it is the one.
In my view,
yeah,
it is only meant to sanitize a process. What has effectively happened is that these individuals, I don't know if they are two, because others are distancing themselves from this process, have effectively defected.
Okay.
And you can say, I think the Honorable Babu is one of the people I've seen in the media arguing that these people have not, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, they have not joined the party, but they have joined the government. But the Honorable Mao has not been appointed Solicitor General. He has been appointed as a minister in an NRM-led government, and there's no coalition.
Yeah.
So he has effectively
joined the national resistance
movement. And again, to talk about track record. In 1964, when the late Honorable Basir Chizabataringaya defected, he had the track record. He had been an astute defender of human rights. Even in Parliament, if you check the history, there was a time the then UPC government arrested in a very barbaric manner one of the members of Parliament from Toro, I think the late Honorable Ruamaro. He spoke candidly in Parliament on several occasions, questioning the excesses of the UPC government. But when he joined the cabinet, you will also find in history that you cannot distance him from the excesses that happened when he was Minister of Interior, of Internal Affairs, especially if you focus on the 1966 crisis and how the royalists of Mengo were treated, those that were arrested when he was Minister of Internal Affairs. In fact, one of the worries that I have is that the track record of the Honorable Mao as a voice of reason, as a voice that has aired out concerns on governance and human rights in this country, may be tainted going forward as Minister of Constitutional Affairs when he is seen to introduce anti-people reforms in the Constitution.
Wow.
I hope he does not take that route. But in my view, the entire process lacks transparency and it lacks legitimacy. Even if we don't focus on the legalese, because we have seen on several media platforms, various leaders, including members of the National Executive Committee of DP, saying they were not aware of the process. Well, the NRM people normally fear, they don't come out to express themselves. But I'm sure even the Central Executive Committee was only represented by an individual in these negotiations and the agreement. The individual and another, I only saw the Secretary General and the lawyer who is also a member of his family. And so a process that is marred in that darkness can only speak to lack of transparency, and I don't see it bearing any fruits in as far as promotion of good governance in this country is concerned. You raised the question relating to the broad-based government in 1986. When the NRA took over power, they invited all these actors and they said they were forming what was called a broad-based government and that it was interim. I'm sure Honorable Francis recalls these developments more than I do. And among the people that came were these people you have mentioned, Semogerere, the late Kayira, Evaristo Nyanzi. And many of them, save for a few, ended on treason charges. To date, some of them, the circumstances under which they died have been a subject of public debate. And if these people, when they joined the NRA to form a broad-based, what was called a broad-based government
at the time,
if the then aspirations had been achieved, probably they would have stayed. But because for them they chose to remain loyal to the principles of the party they are subscribed to, that's why they could not stay. Those who subsequently joined the government and chose to part ways with what they believed in and now work with the new principles of the new establishment, they continued to serve.
You seem to suggest, and this one will go to Captain Francis Babu, that in case there is a possibility where this particular cooperation agreement is not met, especially by, say, the National Resistance Movement or President Yoweri Museveni, there's a likelihood that Mao could step out of it and say, well, the terms and conditions of our cooperation agreement have not been met, I'm now switching back. But that is something we're
I
going
don't
to be
foresee
seeing.
that.
Captain Babu, take us through what could be a balancing act on the part of Norbert Mao.
Yeah, even what my friend is talking about is hypothetical. We don't know if that's what is going to happen.
Yeah.
People are taking the historical background, and some of the information given, some of this is also not right. We've got to get the exact. I mean, that's a different topic.
Okay.
How people got out of government, how they got in, and all that. It's a long topic. It's very short. Now, to go back to Mao. Mao, this is not the first time he's signing agreements with other people. I think some time ago, Mao was taken to court for having procured a services, or I think, of a legal firm as a chief executive. Now, a president general of DP is usually a chief executive.
That's right.
So is the other one. The question is, what are the powers of a chief executive? Can he take the party into a cooperation agreement which does not bind the party? Can he sign something? These are things we've got to answer. So the people who will be able to help us are these legal people when they go to court.
Let me just take
At the moment, I'm trying to say is that people are not going back, because they are not going back to see how many agreements a DP has signed.
DP has signed over the years.
In the last few years, there's a DP block which brought in SDP and somebody else. There's another one on human rights. There's another one where he was taken to court for having procured some services. At the end of the day, I've said all that said and done. Could it be, and this is my question, because the worst bit has been said by everybody.
That's right.
No, they have swallowed us, they have done also. How about if they have not swallowed him, and he's the one who is going to swallow the other one? Wow. In the sense that he's going to come with these things. Say, listen, let's take this route and see if we can get a national dialogue. National dialogue means he's the Minister of Constitutional Affairs. He says, let's have a national dialogue. We've been crying for this. We've had the elderly, we've had the religious councils and different people to come and have a national dialogue. Why do we have a national dialogue? People are saying that the government has not done well. That we should have a national dialogue with the elderly and so on and so forth. Maybe he can pull it off and get a national dialogue and get a constitutional review commission, and at the same time, all these human rights which have been violated, they bring the people back. You know, that kind of thing. I would like to see that kind of thing happening. However, that does not stop me from saying, maybe the other gentleman is still with his old tricks and is up to some new methods. But if that is not so, I would like to give it a bit of time and see what comes out of it. That's my view.
All right, that's very interesting. I was just about, as you were speaking, I was going to interject, but then I let matters flow as naturally as they ought to. The Democratic Party spokesperson, in an interview with the Morning at NTV last week, said that the president of DP has leeway within the constitution of the party to make certain decisions and later explain why he has made those decisions. Now, going into a cooperation agreement with the National Resistance Movement could well fall within that. However, it is monumental, no doubt. It's not a decision that can be reversed, for example, because you've gone to the National Executive Committee of the Democratic Party and sought ratification. It is not going to change the modus operandi that you're going into with the National Resistance Movement. As a legal practitioner, and perhaps one who has delved into these constitutional aspects, political parties and how they are run, is this something that is viable, that a president can act on his, well, I'm sorry to say this, but whims, and then later explain to the party?
Well, that's why earlier I talked about two things, legalism and legitimacy.
Okay.
You know, this is not like procurement of a car of a party president. This is committing all the members of Democratic Party to work with an entity that from day one they have called out on a number of issues. even during the presidential election and even after, in fact, if you look through the archives, even after the January 2021 elections, Norbert Mao questioned the victory of Museveni, said it did not reflect the true will of the people of Uganda.
Despite scoring 1.58%.
Exactly. Now, if you are to go by track record and to give context, is that this is different from signing an agreement, for example, with SDP. Because these are people who say we share aspirations.
Yes.
We disagreed, we were all a Democratic Party, but we disagreed because of the leadership style of so and so, and we went away. Now we have come back to work together to build a Democratic Party. But from day one, you have called out the militarization of politics of General Museveni, you have called out the poor governance, you have called out violation of human rights, and then you wake up one day and tell all the members of the Democratic Party that we have allowed to work with this entity and we have already signed an agreement. Even if you have powers as a president to do so, it lacks legitimacy or acceptability of the people that you lead as a leader of the Democratic Party.
How do you expect, for example, Norbert Mao to act in an incident where political party activists who are DP are involved in a spat with the law, and the entire wrath of it is unleashed onto them? It is something, of course, that we know what we should, but you're a legal practitioner. I just want you to give us the picture of what kind of dilemma the Minister for Constitutional Justice and Constitutional Affairs could find himself in when dealing with arrests and the issuance of outrageous sums of money, especially for bail.
He will probably cheer on as the DP activists are being beaten. Because you see, like I mentioned at the beginning, the deficits that we have in the areas of rule of law, in the areas of governance. For example, stifling of the political and civic space. These are not done by mistakes. They are deliberate approaches that the regime uses to entrench itself in power. And now this regime has procured the services of the Honorable Norbert Mao. Do you think that this appointment is going to become the Damascus of General Museveni and his establishment?
Captain has expressed hope.
But history, the track record, and I'm glad that you also talked about the gentleman with the tricks. The track record of one of the principal signatories to this agreement, General Museveni, is that on many occasions, if not all of them, he has not fulfilled his side of the bargain. And like I mentioned, that the Honorable Mao has effectively crossed over the agreement or what have you, are just meant to sanitize. Because because all these things they have mentioned in the thing that has been making rounds on social media are not things that are not in our statutory instruments, in our constitution, and the different acts of parliament. Good governance, human rights, they are there. So how do you expect a person or a system that does not respect the constitution and other statutes to respect this thing they are calling cooperation agreement?
Well, thank you very much, Benjamin Katana, for that. Captain, we shall be returning to you shortly, but let's first go to Entebbe, where let's see exactly how we transition into that. I understand the spokesperson for the Democratic Party in Entebbe has some very poignant sentiments to give us, especially with regard to this particular development. But as that interview is being put together by our very own Ivan K. Walnyolu, I just want you to give me a little bit more perspective on how what he says will work.
Yeah, apart from the Uganda situation, we are not the first people to work in the multi-party league. If you go to other countries, like Israel, for example, I give that very often, and the other one is Italy. The bigger parties can never get a majority to form a government. They usually must go in cooperation with smaller parties, parties that are not as strong as they are, and therefore when they join, they actually agree on this cooperation agreement.
That's right.
But they do not join their party. In fact, Likud party in the last few times have failed to galvanize the smaller group.
Needed,
and the reasons are very straightforward. But the other group did manage to galvanize a few of those. Now, where I don't agree with this statement that he has crossed over, to cross over means leaving DP and joining NRM, and you get even a card. What this man has done, he has signed an agreement which says, I remain DP, but we will cooperate. Now, Mao has not moved into another party. He has joined the government where they have agreed that the DP will bring their aspirations from their manifesto, and they will explain to the other gentlemen. I mean, this is the theoretical part of it.
Theoretical part.
Now, what I would like to be careful about
very quickly
is to make a statement that the man has completely gone. He can never come back. Mao, I think let us give Mao the benefit of no doubt that he will remain DP and continue to work with the other group to achieve the aspirations that can bring the Ugandans ahead. By the way, these parties are not Uganda. They are vehicles to go into leadership. So at the end of the day, I wish them the best of luck. But if it goes wrong, he will have to resign.
Gentlemen, many thanks. Captain Francis Babu, seasoned political commentator and one of most respected senior elderly persons in the country. Of course, I should have wished you happy Elderly Persons Day yesterday.
Oh yes,
but I can still do that.
Extremely important. You know, you get a highlight like what I have. Have you got any?
I do. And of course, many thanks to you too, Benjamin Katana, for the legal perspective and insight on exactly how well Mao could or could not, will be able not to perform some of the roles that he's been brought on board for. That will do it for our Kickstarter discussion.